Senator Heinrich.
Mr. Alexander, I want to thank you for being with us here today. I had a chance to visit the North Slope, places like Dead Horse, to see a number of the developments that have occurred there in the Prudhoe Bay area, and to visit the refuge as well, and to go to places like Arctic Village. I was struck by the connection, the language and cultural connections with the Navajo people in the Southwest. That really surprised me. And in listening to everyone here today, what really struck me was the way you talked about this place and how different it was from the way my colleagues talked about this place, or the way the gentleman from the Department of Interior talked about this place. They talked about the 1002 area. They talked about Anwar. Anwar, to me, sounds like a Middle Eastern country covered in sand where we should just develop lots of oil and gas. They don't talk about a refuge. And you said, this is the sacred place where life begins. Can you talk a little bit more about how your people talk about this place?
Thank you, Senator. Our people think of this place as the heart. You know, we think of Ijik Watsan Kwantai Kodlit as the heart of the refuge. Okay, this is the heart of the refuge. And, you know, it was interesting earlier, our congressman talked about how it was just a little dot on his nose. And I thought that was funny because, you know, if I were to say to you, you want to do something about that dot on your nose, let's go ahead and have open heart surgery, you'd probably think, well, that's not a good idea, right? That's not a good idea. And so when we talk about the refuge, we talk about the land, it is tied to our language and our understanding of the world. And, you know, the Wadzai, the caribou, we are connected to them and we recognize that. You know, I hear this talk about development all the time. We need to develop this, we need to develop that. What I think we need is a little bit of understanding of the sustainability of the life that we live as Gwich'in. All right? We're not sitting here asking for anything. We're not saying we need hospitals, we need schools, we need all these things. We're not saying give us money. What we're saying is let us live as Gwich'in. Because we already recognize the wealth that we have as people. And it's nothing that you can give us. We recognize it's something that can be taken away from us. And so when we talk about the land, when we talk about the caribou, it's in reverence to them. And you know, I keep hearing, well, the locals, let's hear what the locals have to say about the 1002 area. You know what the locals are? They're caribou. Those are the locals that don't have a voice. And that's why we're here as Gwich'in.
One of the things that really struck me about that geography was how the Arctic plain where the caribou calf is the flat place. To the west is, frankly, an industrial zone. Mm-hmm. You can say you can say birds nest on every drilling rig, but it doesn't look like that when you're there. And then to the south and to the east are mountains. Mm-hmm. And this is the place where the caribou flow like a river, and this is the spring. And if you lose the spring, you lose the whole river, don't you?
Absolutely. And because, you know, I think there's this idea that with development, you know, you're only going to maybe harm part of the herd, or maybe they'll just move over a little bit. There's not that option for them. There's not that option. And so we're talking about the destruction of the herd and irreparable damage to our culture, to people that have been living there for tens of thousands of years. And when I say tens of thousands of years, I'm not just making up numbers. There's a place called Bluefish Cave in the Yukon Territory. It's the oldest known human campsite in North America, and that's Gwich'in territory.
Thank you, Madam Chair.